You should know by now that many of our environmental predicaments stem from the fact that we burn things. Fire and its use will be the subject of this video. Fire is a chemical reaction between oxygen and other materials that releases heat, light, and chemicals. Metabolism, the chemical reactions that take place in the cells and bodies of living organisms, is a central hallmark of life. The primary energy source for life on Earth is the sun. Photosynthetic organisms convert solar energy into chemical energy in the form of sugars, which serve as both an energy source and the building block for other compounds. Living organisms use enzymes, protein catalysts, to extract energy and generate complex molecules at ambient or slightly higher temperatures. Most of this energy comes from the oxidation of sugars. However, this oxidation is not fire. It does not produce flames. Fire requires both oxygen and fuel, both of which exist on Earth only because of life. Photosynthetic organisms use solar energy to split water molecules, releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. As you may recall, oxygen first accumulated in the atmosphere during the Great Oxygenation event, which we discussed earlier. Fuel, in turn, originates from carbon fixed by photosynthesis. Fire is therefore a product, if not a hallmark, of life. Only planets with life can sustain fire. So far, we know of only one such planet, Earth. However, a planet can have life without fire. For most of Earth's history, life flourished, yet fire was absent. Only when plants colonized land did dry flammable fuel accumulate, making fire possible. Humans learned to ignite, control, and use fire, enabling them to perform chemical reactions that require high temperatures, what I call hot chemistry. Look around you. Almost everything man made was produced directly or indirectly using fire. We will discuss this soon and again later in the course. Now look in the mirror. You too were made by fire. Humans cook their food, allowing them to extract significantly more nutrients and energy from their food with much less effort. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, spend half their time chewing with their comparatively large jaws, about 10 times longer than humans. Despite this, they extract far less energy from their food and can support only a brain 1/3 of the size of ours. The brain is the most energy-demanding organ in the body. I wasn't joking about the mirror. We owe our flat faces, small teeth, and most importantly, our big brains to fire. The question of when humans first used fire is hotly contested. Pun intended. The earliest known evidence of human-associated fire was found in Kubi Fora, Kenya, dating back 1.5 million years. 1 million year old burnt bones and plants were discovered in Wonderwerk Cave, South Africa, providing the first unambiguous proof of fire use by humans. Some of the most convincing evidence for ancient fire use in cooking was found here on the banks of the Jordan River in northern Israel by Professor Naama Goren-Bar from the Hebrew University. This evidence dates back 780,000 years ago, the oldest documented use of fire outside of Africa. In order to visit the site, Professor Goren-Bar referred me to her former student, Professor Gonen Sharon, who continues to excavate the site. I'm very happy to be here with Professor Gonen Sharon from Tel Chai University, and we are here at one of the most important and ancient sites for human prehistory, at the Gesher Benot Yaakov, and Gonen will tell us a little bit about this site and what they are finding and doing here now.
In '89, Professor Goren-Bar from the Hebrew University came here. I joined her in '95. This very little area here, Area C. And Area C is floating with bones and things. There are 2 elephants, 2 cows, a hippopotamus, at least 7 dama deers, and a fox and another deers, and fish of 2 meters, and everything is in these 5 meters. We have many things which are the oldest in the world, or the oldest out of Africa. The way to prove use the control of fire. Not the fact that we have fire inside is not a big deal. Well, it's something you can see. Let's say you have burned flint or burned bone, you know you had fire. But at the same time, it can be like a bushfire that runs through the site. So they use a very sophisticated way to show that actually what we have is controlled fire. We document every and each piece of flint that comes from the site. And we know all the sediment goes in a bucket, then it goes in the river for sieving, and then people sit in the lab for years and take out every little piece of flint. And then you know all the flint from the site, where it came from on a 50 by 50. And then comes Professor Alperson Afil now, and she kind of arranged them randomly within this data. And then you see that you have one place with all the flint, but the burned flint is located somewhere else. So up here was the flint, and the burned flint is there. The fact that they are not in the same place means that this is a fireplace.
And the cooked fish also were also there?
So around this, first they show that this is a place where people use fire and control fire. And then around it you could find fish that are burned. And then because they run this experiment and they show that the bones are burned.
Modern humans, Homo sapiens, appeared roughly 200 to 300,000 years ago, as we will discuss in the next part of this course. However, the sites I just mentioned are much older, indicating that an earlier hominid species had already mastered fire. The most likely candidate is Homo erectus, a highly successful species that roamed the Earth for about 2 million years, until roughly 100,000 years ago. Some scholars attribute key anatomical differences between Homo erectus and its predecessors to the use of fire for cooking. We're here in the Qesem cave in central Israel. This fascinating prehistoric site is less than half as old as the site we just visited. It is further much less idyllic, as it is virtually under a major highway. In fact, this cave was discovered when this highway was built. The site has been inhabited for a very long time, between 4 and 200,000 years ago. The well-preserved fireplaces and multiple other findings prove unequivocally that fire has been used here extensively. Cooking was probably the first use of fire, alongside staying warm, deterring predators, and providing light. These benefits would have become even more crucial as hominids expanded into colder regions of Europe and Asia.
Something very important about the fire is the fact that the fire is a focal point for sociality. And when you look at the hunter-gatherers in Africa, for example, and you look what are they doing around the fireplace, so they do all kinds of works, and then all the gossip and all the talking is around the fire. At GBY, we also identified lots of different aspects of the material culture around the fireplaces. So the sociality or the exchange of ideas, of teaching, of learning, of speaking, I think. This is very controversial, but I do believe that they knew that they had a language a full language.
Humans have thus been using fire for over 1 million years. It is not clear, however, whether they harvested and preserved naturally occurring fire, or whether they were capable of igniting it themselves. To ignite a fire, a source of heat and tinder are required. Heat can be generated by friction between two pieces of wood. You can watch here my son Ro'i using this method to light a fire. Once the required temperature is reached and given a suitable tinder, he will have a fire. There are many types of tinder, from fungi, dry branches, cotton wool, etc. This is a pretty laborious method, but it is relatively straightforward. Experts might not agree with me, but I find it highly conceivable that Homo erectus could have used this method to light fire. Crafting a remarkable ubiquitous stone axes, let alone using them to hunt elephants, is considerably more complex than rubbing two pieces of wood together. Obviously, the use of this method does not leave traces that are preserved for eternity. However, this understandable lack of evidence cannot be taken as evidence that it was not used. Here it seems Ro'i managed to make the fire. Well done, Ro'i! Heat for igniting tinder can also be obtained by a spark. Here I'm lighting my cooking range using a piezoelectric spark. And here I'm creating a spark by friction. In both cases my tinder is a flammable gas. Well, calling flammable gas tinder is a bit far-fetched, but you understand what I mean. Sparks can be generated by stone-on-stone percussion. Some stones are better than others. Flint, also widely used to make hand axes, the Swiss knife of prehistory, are very useful in particular if used together with pyrite. Andrew Sorensen from Leiden University has shown that such percussion leaves a characteristic pattern of scraping on hand axes. Studying such Neanderthal axes, he has shown that they already used this method 50,000 years ago. Again, it might have very well been used much earlier. Humans have also used fire to modify the environment. Practices like slash and burn agriculture have been in use for a very long time, possibly even predating agriculture. Many ecosystems are shaped by natural or semi-natural fire regimes, and it is possible that some habitats became adapted to periodic wildfires due to human activity. Many tree species depend on fire, or at least benefit from it for reproduction. The hills behind me were planted with pine trees. Pine trees are very flammable, especially during the dry season, and it doesn't take much to set them ablaze. This is usually due to negligence or due to arson sometimes. And then we have big fires here, big wildfires that endanger infrastructure. Here is a huge hospital next to us, and the roads, and of course lives, and it's pretty ugly afterwards when everything is black and sad. However, for the trees themselves, it's not a big disaster because this is part of their normal life cycle. And we have here small trees which recovered after a very short time. They sprout, all the seeds which get dispersed sprout, and the trees renew themselves. So for the trees, it's part of the life cycle. For us, it's not really what we expect from a recreational forest. The ability to harness fire has been essential for the production of most human-made materials. The earliest human tools, stone tools, could be crafted without fire. But heating certain types of stone improved their workability. This may have been some of the earliest technological application of fire. Human mastery of fire enabled the creation of ceramics, glass, and metals, fundamentally transforming societies. Indeed, human history has been categorized by the materials shaped by fire: the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and Iron Age. Later in the course, we will explore fire's role in producing what are known as the 4 pillars of modern civilization: plastics, ammonia, steel, and concrete. In the next video, we'll discuss transportation, which of course is heavily dependent on fire, primarily through internal combustion.